My primary genre will be indie. This then allows me to be as creative as possible while still within one genre. A subgenre I could pick is indie rock. This allows me to add certain elements that other rock magazines have used to make my magazine more appealing and to fit a wider audience. I aspire my magazine to have the same popularity as Q, yet the individualism and style of Vibe and The Fly. I could do this by using these as influence, but also adopting my own style to make sure it's my own magazine. I would like to use gels and different coloured backgrounds to express the unique aspect my magazine will hold in order to fully portray the genre of indie. On my magazine, I will include lots of different bands and artists and information on gigs. This is generally what appears in the magazines, but I will focus on the gigs and bands that are indie. The codes and conventions of a magazine will all apply to my magazine. I will use a front cover, contents page and article. The use of a studio shots will make it as professional as possible, and I'll make sure everything adheres to the codes and conventions. In particular, I'll use a masthead that relates to my genre by using a particular font or a particular unique name. The cell lines I will use on my front cover will conform to the genre by using particular bands that are of the same genre. When thinking about my audience, I thought of a primary and a secondary audience. My primary audience will be men, aged 18 to 30 in the class bracket of ABC1, as they have the most disposable income. They will be considered individualists, as mainly men tend to go towards the pop genre or the rock genre, and indie is still male dominated, which proves why they would be seen as individualists. This would also improve their personal identities, as it would create a certain sense of belonging, which they could use with indie. It is also a unique genre, which would relate to who the individualists are. Another part of the men over my primary audience would be men 20 to 24. They are also in the ABC1 class bracket, as they have the highest disposable income. These could be considered aspirers, as they may read my magazine as a statement, as it will all be individual and different. My secondary audience is women aged 17 to 35. They are also in the ABC1 class bracket, as they have the most disposable income. They would also be seen as individualists, as mainly women steer towards the pop genre when thinking about music. The women could be alienated, as indie is a male-dominated genre, yet there's also an amount of women who do like this genre, hence why they were called individualists. It's interesting to see how there's a group of women aged 18 to 22 in the ABC1 class bracket that are explorers that could also enjoy my magazine. They could be discovering the genre through my magazine and value the difference of my magazine. These could also apply to students, which is why it is a younger demographic. The uses and gratifications that apply to my audience would help them to enjoy my magazine, as my magazine would give them lots of information about gigs and information on their favourite bands and favourite artists. This would help them gain information on who they like and how to develop their own personal style. It also supply entertainment, as they could use it as pastime to read my magazine, as well as find out more about their favourite artists. It also improves personal identity, as they could look as the people involved in my magazine as role models, and they could look up to them while also developing their own identity by including indie as their identity. It would also improve personal relationships with people, as they would gain friends who also like the same music as they do. This would help them with personal relationships, as they could possibly have conversations about a magazine or about the genre indie in general. For my institution, I have picked Bayer Media Group. This is a publishing house that publish Q, Kerrang and Mojo since 2008. They first published in England in 1987 and have then published 50 different magazines in England, as well as different radio and TV services. Bayer Media Group have 11,000 employees and roughly earn 2.3 billion euros a year, as they are mainly based in Europe and England. In my opinion, they are the most successful publishing house in Britain, and it would be perfect for my magazine to be published by them. This Bayer Media Group would also give my magazine a perfect chance to be marketed and publicised, and give them a huge chance to expand onto radio, such as Kerrang, who have Kerrang Radio. I hope they would pick mine, because because as much as it is another music magazine, and they already have 3, it would express a certain individualism as it is of the genre indie. As Q is not inherently indie, mine will stand out, and mine will be inherently indie. Kerrang is very rock and metal based, which my magazine will not be. And Mojo use a unique selling point of decade editions, which my magazine will not follow, although it will still stand out and still have a certain unique aspect in which Bayer Media Group would like. The use of my magazine with a younger demographic of target audience shows the excellence of it being individual, as it will target more people, not just the general range of people who like certain bands. The indie genre is creative and alternative, whereas rock could be restricted. So indie kind of opens up my magazine to larger audiences, as well as more content that it could include. I hope for all representations I have of my models and artists to be as positive and empowering as possible, and not be stereotypical or degrading in any way. I hope that all my images are through the lens of indie, so they turn into unique and interesting photos. Many of my models will wear casual and comfy clothes to make sure that they feel comfortable, as well as making sure they're not alienated from the reader. The clothes they will wear represent who they are, which is important, as indie is it is important in indie that you represent your own personal identity. Props I could use would be a guitar or the use of a chair and a stool, which shows the range of photos I could collect, as well as the range of ideas I have in my magazine. The studio shots will show the professionalism of my magazine, as well as the comfort of making sure there's no outside shots. The gels and the backgrounds will also, the different colour gels and different colour backgrounds will also show how I can be creative with colours and be creative with the resources I have. The way they were posed will be in a simple way, and they will not be put in any uncomfortable positions. So with the use of a chair, I could use different angles, such as high or low angles, and I could even use some like bird's eye or worm's eye. I hope not to conform to any gender stereotypes, as images will be only for my magazine. As we often see that sometimes men and women are either sexualised or have a particular body image, I hope to not conform to these standards and to make my own magazine and make it as less degrading or stereotypical as possible. I feel that when there's no stereotypes, it helps representation and it helps the personality of each individual artist.